Hey there guys, welcome to episode 4 of the Nerd Talk podcast. I'm your host, Leland, and in this series, I take a few minutes every 2 weeks to recommend a movie for you guys. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about the 1982 movie, The Last Unicorn. Now this movie was based on the book of the same name by Peter S. Beagle and was directed by Arthur Rankin Jr. and Jules Bass, and tells the story of a unicorn who learns she's allegedly the last of her kind. While searching for the truth, she learns of a red bull owned by King Hagrid that's said to have driven them away, and she also makes friends in the form of Schmendrick the Magician and Molly Grew. And along the way, she is also forced to change into a woman named Amalthea to be saved from the bull while they search for answers. Now, my first praise I want to give for this movie is its animation. As I said, this movie was released in 1982, and its animation holds up very well 42 years later. It's one of those movies where it genuinely looks, in my opinion, like a fairy tale has been taken from a book and transported on to the big screen. And for a movie like this, I think that's a really big compliment that you can give it. And a fun fact about it too was that Rankin Bass Productions would often outsource the animating part of their projects to wherever they could get the money for it. And so the animation for this was actually done in Japan. And so it actually feels like you're getting to see two different cultures come together to tell a story, which I always love to see. It's similar to something like Snow White, where you had that combination of European storytelling combined with Disney's American animation. So again, the combination of cultures creates this very fairy tale atmosphere that I think is, again, a really strong thing that this movie has to offer. Now, one of my favorite things about the animation specifically is the Red Bull in the film. Aside from the name, I think, being self-explanatory, I think it just looks awesome. The way it chases the characters when it's on screen, and the subtle flames around it show why the unicorns are scared of him and why it's owned by someone like King Hagrid. And this actually leads me to my second point I want to talk about, which is the voice acting in this film. The Last Unicorn is stacked with a perfect cast. You've got Mia Farrow as the unicorn / Amalthea, Alan Arkin as Schmendrick the Magician, Christopher Lee as King Hagrid, Jeff Bridges as Prince Lear, and loads of other great performances. Now, Mia Farrow specifically, I think she shines when you compare her performance as the unicorn and Amalthea. When she's a unicorn, she has this very proper presence and is very well-spoken, if you will, but then when she becomes a human, she's, initially terrified out of her mind because she's just changed her form, and it's like, whoa, what just happened? And she's much more shy and reserved, at least at the start, and she slowly prefers her human form as the movie progresses. An example of what I'm talking about is her song, Now That I'm a Woman, where she's singing about how she doesn't know how to deal with the new emotion she's got. And again, it's really interesting just comparing her technically to performances in this film, as I think Farrow does a really well done job. And Christopher Lee, of course, is perfect as King Hagrid. You've got Christopher Lee as the bad guy. I'd argue that's all you technically need to say, but, without spoiling anything, you slowly learn his reasons for keeping the trio there and what has happened to all the unicorns of the world. And whenever Lee is on screen, again, mainly because it's Christopher Lee doing this, you feel that concern of them, as they never know what he's going to do and how he manages to command his presence in even the most subtle of ways. The rest of the cast, I also think, does a great job. Jeff Bridges is great as Prince Lear and has great chemistry with Mia Farrow when she plays Amalthea. Alan Arkin is likable as Schmendrick, and you definitely feel for him when he plays the fool or when his magic doesn't go according to plan, if you will. And Angela Lansbury has a brief but fun performance as a carnival showwoman that displays different creatures. Now, the last thing about this movie I want to talk about is its soundtrack. I'd argue that it helps add not only to the fairy tale atmosphere that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, but it also helps to always move the story along in some sort of way. So, for example, the title song that starts this movie by the band America, I'd argue tells you everything you need to know going in, and again, it's just a really catchy and well-done song, in my opinion. But some other songs are also really well done and touch your heartstrings. Going back to Amalthea's song, Now That I'm a Woman, she again describes what she's going through, how it's changing her, and you understand why she's confused and doesn't know what's happening. And later on, when she and Lear are falling in love, they have another number called That's all I have to say, and it shows how she's, again, growing more and more human over the film, and it's now experiencing new emotions that she otherwise wouldn't have. It also offers a little bit more insight into Jeff Bridges' character with how he's fallen for her and how he just wants to show his love. So to conclude my thoughts with The Last Unicorn, the animation once again holds up very well 42 years later. The voice acting and music are very well done, and this movie is also just one of my personal favorites, so that's another fun fact for you. Now this concludes episode 4 of the Nerd Talk podcast. Before I go, I want to thank you guys for listening to this episode. It really means a lot. And if you enjoyed it, and if you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of the Nerd Talk podcast. And if you have seen this movie, please be sure to let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. And until next time, my name is Nick Leland. Thank you for listening to the Nerd Talk podcast, and I hope you have a great day.